Chapter 5. Monica. Monica had always loved numbers. She loved their logic, their predictability. She found making one side of an equation balance with the other immensely satisfying, solving X and proving Y. But the numbers on the paper in front of her now would not behave. No matter how many times she added up the figures in the left-hand column, income, they wouldn't stretch to cover the total in the right, outgoings. Monica thought back to her days as a corporate lawyer, when adding up the numbers was a chore, but never something to keep her awake at night. Every hour she spent poring over the small print on some contract or leafing through endless statutes, she'd bill the client £250. She'd have to sell 100 medium-sized cappuccinos to make the same. Why had she allowed herself to make such a monumental life change with such alacrity and for such emotional reasons? She, who found it difficult to choose a sandwich filling without running through a mental list of pros and cons, comparing price, nutritional values, and calorie counts. Monica had tried every cafe on the commute between her apartment and her office. There were the soulless ones, the tired and grubby ones, and the identikit, mass-produced chain ones. Every time she handed over money for an overpriced, mediocre takeaway coffee, she'd picture her ideal cafe. There would be no brushed concrete, molded plastic, exposed pipework, or industrial-style lamps and tables. Rather, it would feel like being invited into someone's home. There would be comfy, mismatched armchairs, eclectic art on the walls, newspapers and books. Books everywhere, not just for show, but ones you could pick up, read, and take home with you, so long as you left another one in its place. The barista wouldn't ask your name in order to misspell it on your cup. He, or she, Monica added quickly, would know it already. They'd ask after your kids and remember the name of your cat. Then, she had been walking down the Fulham Road and noticed that the dusty old sweet shop, which had been there forever, had finally closed. A large board on its front announced "To Let." Some local wag had painted a large I in between the letters O and L. Every time Monica walked past the vacant shop, she could hear her mother's voice. In those last few weeks, the ones that smelled of disease and decay, and that were punctuated by the constant electronic beeps of medical machinery, she'd urgently tried to impart decades' worth of wisdom to her daughter before it was too late. Listen to me, Monica. Write it down, Monica. Don't forget, Monica. Emmeline Pankhurst didn't chain herself to those railings so we could spend our lives as a tiny cog in someone else's wheel. Be your own boss. Create something. Employ people. Be fearless. Do something you really love. Make it all worthwhile. So, she had done it. Monica wished she'd been able to name the cafe after her mother, but she was called Charity, and it seemed like a really bad business decision to give a cafe a name that implied no need to pay. Things, as it turned out, were hard enough. Just because this cafe was her dream didn't mean anyone else would necessarily share it, or at least not enough of them to cover her costs, and she couldn't keep making up the shortfall forever. The bank wouldn't let her. Her head was throbbing. She walked over to the bar and poured the remainder of a bottle of red wine into a large glass. Being the boss was all very well, she told her mother inside her head, and she loved her cafe, the essence of which had seeped into her bones. But it was lonely. She missed the office gossip around the water cooler. She missed the camaraderie forged over pizza during late-night working sessions. She even found herself remembering fondly those ridiculous team bonding days, the office jargon, and impenetrable three-letter acronyms. She loved her team at the cafe, but there was always a slight distance between them because she was responsible for their livelihoods, and right now she couldn't even manage her own. She was reminded of the questions that man, Julian, had asked in the notebook he left on this very table. She'd approved of his choice. Monica couldn't help herself judging people by where in her cafe they decided to sit. How well do you know the people who live near you? How well do they know you? She thought of all the people who'd come in and out today, the bell ringing jauntily with each arrival and departure. They were all connected, more than ever before, to thousands of people, friends on social media, friends of friends. Yet, did they, like her, feel like they had no one they could actually talk to? Not about the latest celebrity eviction from some house or island or jungle, but about the important things, the things that keep you awake at night, like numbers that wouldn't obey your command. Monica shuffled her papers back into their file and pulled out her phone, loading up Facebook and scrolling through. There was still no sign of Duncan, the man she'd been dating until a few weeks ago, on her social media. She'd been ghosted. Duncan, the vegan, who'd refused to eat avocados because the farmers exploited bees in their pollination, but who thought it perfectly acceptable to have sex with her and then just disappear. He cared more about the sensitivities of a bee than he did her. She kept scrolling, despite knowing this would not be a comfort, more a form of mild self-harm. Haley had changed her relationship status to engaged. Whoop whoop. Pam had posted a status about her life with 3 kids, a boast thinly and inexpertly disguised as self-deprecation. And Sally had shared her baby scan picture, 12 weeks. Baby scans. What was the point in sharing those? They all looked the same, and none of them resembled an actual child, more like a weather map predicting an area of high pressure over northern Spain. And yet, every time Monica saw a new one, it stopped her breath and floored her with a wave of yearning and a humiliating stab of envy. She felt, sometimes, like an old Ford Fiesta, broken down on the hard shoulder, while everyone sailed past her in the fast lane. Someone had left a copy of Hello on a table today. It screamed a headline about a Hollywood actress's baby joy at 43. Monica had scanned the pages during her coffee break, looking for clues as to how she'd done it. IVF? Egg donation? Had she frozen her eggs years ago? Or had it happened easily? How much time did her own ovaries have left? Were they already packing their suitcases for a relaxing retirement on the Costa Brava? Monica picked up her glass of wine and walked around the cafe, turning off all the lights and straightening any errant chairs or tables. She went out onto the street, keys in one hand, glass in the other, locked the cafe door, and turned to unlock the door to her apartment above. Then, out of nowhere, a large bloke towing a blonde like a motorbike sidecar careened into her so hard that she was momentarily winded, and the glass of wine she was holding erupted, all over her face and his shirt. She could feel rivulets of Rioja coursing down her nose and dripping off her chin. She waited for his abject apology. "Oh, for fuck's sake," he said. Monica felt a heat rising from her chest, making her face flush and her jaw clench. "Hey, you walked into me," she protested. "Well, what on earth do you think you were doing just standing in the middle of the pavement with a glass of wine?" he said. "Can't you drink in a bar like a normal person?" His face, with its perfectly symmetrical planes, would have been classically handsome, but it was split by the ugly gash of a sneer. The blonde pulled him away, giggling inanely. "Stupid bitch," she heard him say, deliberately pitching his voice just loud enough for her to hear. Monica let herself into her apartment. "Honey, I'm home," she said, as she always did, silently, and to no one, and thought for a minute she was going to cry. She put the empty glass down on the draining board in her kitchenette and wiped the wine off her face with a tea towel. She was desperate to speak to someone. but she couldn't think who to call. Her friends were all caught up in their own busy lives and wouldn't want her inflicting her misery on their evenings. There was no point calling her dad, since Bernadette, her stepmother, who saw her as an inconvenient backstory to her new husband's life, acted as gatekeeper, and would no doubt announce that her father was busy writing and couldn't be disturbed. Then Monica saw, sitting on the coffee table where she'd left it a few days ago, the pale green notebook labeled The Authenticity Project. She picked it up and turned again to the first page. Everyone lies about their lives. What would happen if you shared the truth instead? The one thing that defines you, that makes everything else about you fall into place. Why not? She thought, feeling the thrill of being uncharacteristically reckless. It took her a while to find a decent pen. It seemed a bit disrespectful to follow Julian's careful calligraphy with a scrawl and manky old bureau. She turned to the next clean page and began to write.